Oh, goody.
Alright, what's going on everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. And today I wanted to talk a bit about Iron Lad and kind of the lack of availability for this card and how it represents a overarching problem that I'm seeing here with Spotlight caches in the few months since they have first released earlier this summer. So, what is the issue with Iron Lad? Well, people cannot get this card, and that is mainly because tokens have become such a scarce resource that when you really want a Series 5 card, the recommended thing from myself and pretty much every other content creator I know is you should save your Spotlight caches, use them for Series 5 cards, and get Series 4 cards with tokens when that's really the only thing you want that week. So the issue is, it takes so ridiculously long to get tokens, especially if you're a free-to-play or pass-only player. Tokens are just not something you accumulate a lot of, and so that makes that 6K price tag on cards like Iron Lad really hard to obtain. Looking at the history of the Spotlight caches, Iron Lad has only been available once since Spotlight's released, and that was the second week of Spotlight caches. Now, I think this was particularly difficult for players since a lot of players didn't hoard their resources in anticipation of Spotlight caches. People just like opening their things as they got them, and with the new Spotlight cache system coming in and people not having 4 of them to spend by the second week of release, a lot of people who wanted this card just didn't really get the chance to have a go at it. And now we're seeing, a couple months later, Iron Lad has been a dominant part of a tier 1 deck that we can see right here, Iron Patriot. There are a few different versions of this going around. The flex slots here are generally Rogue and Luke Cage, but I find the rest of the list to be pretty core, and one of the main reasons this deck is so strong is because you're leaning on creating copies of Brood and making them have higher power. And Iron Lad is a very core piece of what the deck is trying to do, as you're not going to draw your Brood and Forge and Absorbing Man every game, so Iron Lad giving you the ability to create copies of Brood or just hit another high value target like Iron Man, Alioth, even Silver Surfer, just is a big part of why this deck is powerful and playable. And unlike some other cards in the game, there isn't really a replacement for what this card does. What this card does is very unique, and there just isn't another card out there that fills the same role. We're also seeing this card pop up more in Darkhawk decks that are starting to make a bit of a comeback as just a really high value 4-drop that can benefit from your deck having a critical mass of cards that are just rather strong on reveal effects or just strong ongoings like Darkhawk and Iron Man. So I think there's a lot of frustration surrounding this card because people really want a chance to get it, but 6K tokens seems just impossibly far away for most players. And we know through the data mines, Iron Lad will not be showing up in Spotlight caches for the rest of this year. So neither November or December has Iron Lad in caches. And why is that? Well, the reason previously stated why some cards aren't making their way into the Spotlight caches right away or having a repeat appearance is because these cards don't have enough variants, according to Second Dinner, where they don't have stuff they can put in the caches to entice people to get it who may already have the card. And that is just a terrible excuse, in my opinion, because there are a lot of players who just want the card and don't care about the variants. And Iron Lad already has a Spotlight cache variant. Now, in the past, they have said, well, we don't want to repeat variants in Spotlight caches, but they seem to have thrown that philosophy out the window, as we've already seen them repeat multiple Spotlight cache variants in recent weeks, namely High Evolutionary and Thanos had repeat variants, and we're going to be seeing a repeat variant on Legion in the coming months. So it's like, they give us one reason for why they can't do a thing, and then they immediately contradict that reason with, well, we're doing this anyway. We're not happy about it, but we're doing it. And it's like, it's just a little ridiculous to me, and I think this is a huge flaw of the Spotlight cache system. Iron Lad is not the only card that is suffering from this problem, but I think it is the most prominent one. It's the one most players really want access to but can't, because it's not only a powerful effect, but just a fun effect, and I think encourages interesting deck building. And a lot of people just like what this card is trying to do, but can't access it, and it's also gatekeeping one of the best decks in the game out of many players' hands, which feels really bad. Lad is not the only card, though, that is in this kind of predicament. A Living Tribunal is another iconic one here, as it could just do really, really absurd things with power, and Living Tribunal was popping up a lot last season as kind of a pseudo counter to some of the Loki stuff going on, and some players are even trying it right now as a potential way to outpower the Elsa Bloodstone decks. And Living Tribunal is another one where, much like Iron Lad, this is an archetype defining card. You can't play a Living Tribunal deck without the Living Tribunal, much like you can't play Iron Patriot without Iron Lad. So the deck just doesn't work, and this is another card where he has had one appearance in Spotlight Caches and will not be appearing in any more from now to the rest of the end of the year. I think frustrations are then further amplified when we're seeing Null making his way back for a third appearance later on in, I think, either November or December. And it's just like, why are you putting in cards that people have had multiple chances to get when we are only seeing these cards once in a span of 6 months? It's kind of crazy to me. I think it just really shows how arbitrary it is what they decide is in Spotlight Caches and what isn't. And this is a way where, hey, if something's not in a Spotlight Cache, you're essentially saying, so really the only ways of getting this card are you either high roll the random slot, which the odds are definitely not in your favor there, or you have to cough up 6k tokens. And since tokens are hard to get, this kind of can push players into buying bundles or buying the Token Tuesdays, which have been pretty mediocre value for a while. So it just feels like they're getting to cash in on the fact that these are archetype defining cards that many players are interested in, but there's just no way to get them through what is supposed to be the main acquisition in the card game. And when you only have one chance to get this card in like a 6-month window, that just doesn't feel good. That feels incredibly bad, because what happens in the future when one of the cards you want, you don't have the Spotlight Caches for it that week? It's a Series 5 card, and then, well, maybe you don't see it again for 6 months. That's a huge feels bad. So yeah, I think something has to be done about this. I think it's one of the biggest weak points of the Spotlight system, and I think it shows that they really didn't have this whole system planned out. One of the things a lot of players have noticed is the fact that they kind of originally touted Spotlight Caches and the variants as being a real special exclusive thing. I know a lot of people really liked the initial showing of like Jean Grey's variant. I really liked this one. I thought it was super cool. But as time has gone on, we've seen that they're just kind of throwing whatever they can in there. I love my Dan Hip Jeff to death. However, I really disagree with the fact that this was chosen as a Spotlight Cache variant. They're pretty much always 700 gold, and the fact that they locked this variant and the Hip Monkey Dan Hip behind what is essentially a $50 box if you're actually paying for it seems a bit insane to me. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this a bit. I think it's kind of a hot point, and it comes up a lot whenever I'm streaming, whenever I see other people streaming and they're using a deck that has Iron Lad or Living Tribunal, and people are just like, hey, can I replace this? How important is it to get? Basically, in my opinion, these are the cards that, unfortunately, you should probably be targeting the hardest, because you know they're not going to be coming back in the next 2 months, and with series drops being MIA still, and in my opinion, unlikely to resume anytime this year, you're basically stuck paying the same price for Iron Lad now that anyone who bought him when he came out paid, even though they got to play with the card for months more. And I think that shows a fundamental shift in how Marvel Snap has changed pretty dramatically. The old philosophy of the game used to be, hey, you're not going to be able to get all these new cards on release, but if you're okay with waiting a bit of time, you can get those cards for a reduced price. And if you're Series 3 complete, you eventually get them for free. I know a lot of people who didn't initially pick up Jeff because they didn't think he was going to be worth 6,000 tokens to them, and they were fine waiting a few months for him to just rotate down to Pool 4 or Pool 3 and get him for free because they're Series 3 complete. Well, those people ended up with a lot of egg on their face, and a lot of them ended up paying 6,000 tokens or just opening Spotlight Caches specifically for Jeff, because Jeff is not dropping anytime soon. Big Bads may no longer be relevant, but now it feels like a lot of impactful Series 5 cards are big bads in their own right, except instead of being big bads, he's a big Jeff, right? So I think this is a problem. I think it's something they really have to sort out. And I think we're going to see this problem get worse as they continue to repeat cards and repeat variants when there are other cards out there that players want access to. They really don't have a great means of acquiring outside of breaking out the most OP card in the game, the credit card. So if Iron Lad or Living Tribunal is a card you're interested in, I think these are the cards that, unfortunately, you probably should be prioritizing with your tokens. Now, I'd only get this card if you're super interested in the decks that are making use of it. So in this case, Iron Patriot, Darkhawk, other kind of mid-rangey focused decks. And in the Tribunal's case, the Hela Tribunal or just full combo Invisible Woman, Iron Man Tribunal. Those are the main decks where these cards are seeing play, but they give you kind of a unique way to play. And in the Iron Lad's case, it's one of the best decks in the game, and it has been for the last good while. So yeah, something has to change here. I think they really do need to make these cards more accessible, whether that's adjusting how they handle the spotlight system, whether that's giving players more agency with tokens. I know that's what I would prefer. I think we lost way too much agency when the system was initially changed, and there's got to be a better balancing act of letting players have more selection over what they can acquire in the game. You don't need to give players every single card, but you should give players a viable path towards getting certain cards they really want, and right now that just feels like it isn't the case for cards like Iron Lad, Living Tribunal, or for the 5 Howard fans out there, Howard the Duck. You don't see people complaining about him because he's essentially one of the worst cards in the game and useless, but the point still stands, you know? And this could happen to any other card in the game. It's only a matter of time until we get another card that just doesn't happen to have enough variants in the pipeline, and all of a sudden they become the next Iron Lad or Living Tribunal, and that only gets worse if it ends up being a meta-relevant card that defines an entire archetype like we've seen in Iron Lad's case. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this a bit because I don't think enough people are talking about this issue, and it's something I hope we can see addressed in the future, because I think right now this is one of the biggest flaws of the Spotlight system. It's how it essentially gutted agency from a lot of players and has kind of made the game feel less enjoyable because of that, because people are at the mercy of RNG or at the mercy of whatever second dinner decides to feature a card they really like again. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you enjoyed it, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.